Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Reading with Mancini the Amazing. Today we have on special guest, and definitely not the person who was in like every video on this channel, Mr. Keith Sheldon. Take it away, Thudgore.
I didn't see you come into my study, but now that you're in, as my, as my cohort said, let's read a book. The book today will be BBL, known as Bibble, Season 7, the breakdown for the draft of Bagon and Eggs. Now please open up the first page to chapter 1.
Yep. Sorry, just for context, sorry. Thank you to Fran for doing this awesome art of the team together. I like it a lot. And thanks to the BBL staff for letting me in and giving the like format thing that I use for all my Mon slides. Now, it's not letting me move slide. Help. Oh, that's because I accidentally went to slide 13.
Turn the page, sir.
Ignore that I went to slide 13 by accident. Now, slide 1. Yeah, John Curtin, Prime Minister of Australia.
Oh no, please don't.
John Curtin. This is how John Curtin.
From countries trying
No,
to do
this
accents
is how
to
John
people
Curtin
from
sounds
their
like,
countries.
played by a guy from he's played by an Australian guy in Civ 6, and that's what he sounds like.
I haven't played Civ 6 in a long time because I keep dying too quickly.
That's because you're bad at the game.
I am, and I couldn't be bothered getting better because I am a millennial who needs instant gratification.
That's why you should play newly announced game Victoria 3, because apparently you don't have to be good at the game to enjoy it. At least that's what I understand from what the game says.
replaying Persona 4
And
5.
can you believe that they are actually releasing a game of sort of Paradox that isn't set during like the 1940s? Every area that has people living in it is actually represented as having people living in it that have some form of agency and are not just like a number on a screen. Because I personally think that's very cool. I think that's a very interesting announcement that came out today.
I can't help but feel like we've fallen off the rails and it's been 2 minutes.
Well, it could have been less time, but you were too busy trying to read children's stories. See, John Curtin, Prime Minister of Australia. He's representing Arceus Dragon, which is the dragon form of the legendary god creator himself, Arceus. I feel like I went off from that to like the Manitoba, whatever his face is, the Indiana Jones parody that is somehow Australian from Total Drama. Revenge of the Island.
Russell Quaid.
No, it was Manitoba Smith or something. Russell Quaid is not an Indiana Jones parody. What?
I don't care. It's Russell Quaid. He's now an Indiana Jones parody.
It's an Indiana Jones parody named after a place in Canada from Australia. Very interesting.
Russell Quaid.
Russell Quaid, very well known for being named after a place in Canada.
Arceus Dragon.
Yes, Arceus Dragon. So this
Arceus Dragon
because I won my first ever Ubers League with one. I don't. It's you see, it is. I was like picked like 11th, I think. I want to say 11th. I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 11th. And I wanted a Mon that was broken, so I picked Arceus because it was still around. And so the way that the thing worked is they were platinum, gold, and silver Ubers, and you're allowed to get only one Uber if you got a platinum, and if you got a gold Uber, you could get a silver Uber as well. And if you got a silver Uber, you could get 2 silver Ubers. You could also choose to only get 1 gold or 1 silver, but I didn't wind up doing that. So I picked Arceus Dragon because it's incredibly versatile, and I can work with it with basically whatever I want. Because I don't really tend to like most dragon types, so getting one that I actually like is cool.
Yeah, anyway, speaking of dragon type now.
Speaking of dragon types.
Speaking of dragon type.
Let's turn our face to chapter 2. Harold Holt is Dialga. This is my steel type.
So, keeping in mind that you hate most dragon types,
well, you see,
why did you pick a second dragon?
Dialga is not weak to any of the types that Arceus Dragon is weak to, because Arceus Dragon is weak to Ice, Dragon, and Fairy, and Dialga doesn't resist any of them, but it is neutral to all of them. And it's grounded fighting, which is not things that the other Pokemon that we were talking about was weak to. It's a normal decision, okay? There's Harold Holt, famous Australian Prime Minister, and future Olympics Beijing 2024. What's it called?
Famously known
800,
for, you know,
800 kilometer swim. Well, no, 800 meter swim champ.
yeah, famously known for going underwater to fight the Dark God Cthulhu, and he hasn't returned since. But
Yes.
very important to note.
Yes.
Neither
Yes.
has Cthulhu.
Cthulhu.
Neither has Cthulhu. Yeah.
Cthulhu for time.
We don't know who's won.
I mean, I have my suspicions.
The battles could still be going on.
Look, all I'm saying is, I don't think Cthulhu would be pretending to be like bilingual weeb thing streaming on the internet if, you know, they had won their fight against the great Prime Minister of Australia, Harold Holt.
They're keeping a low profile because they know he's coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Harold Holt is an Australian Prime Minister.
Was an Australian Prime Minister.
Well, was an Australian Prime Minister. No, because he's still alive. Was an Australian
that
Prime
still
Minister.
was, but I would say, I mean, literally every single person here was an Australian Prime Minister,
Okay,
because none of them are the Prime Minister.
He was an Australian Prime Minister, and then he had a swim in the ocean and
So
just disappeared.
famously, Harold Holt was a very avid swimmer. He swam all the time. He used to sit in Parliament holding his breath for as long as possible. I think he made it over like 8 minutes once, because he didn't really care about most of the stuff. You know, he's a very, very solid lad. And then we just went swimming one time, where he goes swimming all of the time, and his wife, who was cheating on, was the only person there, and she just said, "Oh, he fell in the water and he never came back." Along with the person he was cheating on his wife with, who was also cheating on, and her husband. And all of them were like, "Oh yeah, he definitely fell in the water, mate. He didn't come back." And that's very believable. You know,
we don't have the body. We've got nothing. He's just gone.
Yeah, very believable that Harold Holt, the guy, is like one of like the greatest swimmers in Australian history, definitely just went missing in waters he swam all the time.
Yeah,
definitely happened.
Again, he went to fight Cthulhu.
Sure.
Cthulhu,
Just,
whatever.
Ignore any American intelligence agents operations in the area. Okay, so now if we turn the page to chapter 3, we find that I finished my Fairy Dragon Steel Core with the fairy. It's Gough Whitlam. And would you look at this? Clefable is so happy to be Gough Whitlam that they are even doing the same pose.
Yeah.
So you've got the fingers curled over on the Clefable as well.
Yeah, and that Gough Whitlam, portrait probably came first. So this is definitely the Clefable mimicking.
Yeah,
Gough
the
Whitlam,
Gough
not the other way
Whitlam.
around.
It's like the Gough Whitlam thing came before Pokemon was the thing.
Yeah,
It's like-
exactly. That's why.
Exactly. It was. I mean, very happy to be here. It definitely came around before Pokemon Home. I mean, Pokemon Home only came out like a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Came out during 2020, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So, why'd you pick Clefable next?
Well, you see, I had 2 Pokemon with Stealth Rock, and I figured it would be cool if I had another Pokemon with Stealth Rock. I had 3 Pokemon with Stealth Rock.
Okay. So, in case anyone wants to run Defog against you, they have to Defog on all 3 Pokemon.
Exactly. They have to be able to have a Pokemon that can click Defog in front of all 3 of them. Yeah,
Wait a
it's
minute.
very, very powerful, very consistent. I mean, Stealth Rock are broken, right? Like, you put up the thing, and then there's no
I mean,
counter.
there's not like there's been an item that has been introduced.
Yeah, but like, I'll be playing against like Giratina Origin, which has to
Yeah,
run the
sure.
Grishasorb, and like, a bunch of Mega Pokemon which can't run Boots. I mean, you would only catch me ever draft. The only Pokemon I'd ever draft that can't run Boots is like Arceus. Clefable runs Boots every single game because you never run Magic Guard. You always run Unaware.
I think this is an Ubers, so this might that's probably correct.
Yes. You think this is an Ubers league? You're not sure after the first 2 picks?
I mean, it could just be incredibly, sort of
Wait,
juiced tiers.
we forgot to do a transition between the Harold Holt and Gough Whitlam. Speaking of CIA-related ending of prime ministerships, here's Gough. I don't remember which prime minister is the next person, so I know what Pokemon's next. Wait, no, I think is it
Speaking of
is it Menzies? It is Menzies, yes. Speaking of good Australian prime ministers, he's not one. Skarmory. That's right, Robert Menzies, Skarmory. I figured I needed a Pokemon.
Another Stealth Rocker.
Well, you see, I had a
dependent on
You see, how to defogger, right? In Arceus, but like, you don't really want to run defog on your Arceus, right?
You want
to run Stealth Rock. So I have I have Pokemon with defog that isn't Arceus.
and also Stealth Rock.
I mean, it does have. I already had a Pokemon with Stealth Rock that wasn't Arceus. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Skarmory is cool. This is the
Skarmory has
analysis
access to
we've done
Whirlwind
here.
and Roar. Just, in case you're running out of PP on one of them.
Yeah, or in case, we're
None of them beat Hatterene, though.
immune to Whirlwind.
Nothing is immune to Whirlwind.
No, well there you go.
That's not true. Isn't there an ability that stops you from being phased?
Okay, there's no Pokemon that are immune to Whirlwind.
There's several that
There
are
are
immune to Roar.
Pokemon that are immune to Roar,
Yeah, soundproof.
and not Whirlwind, yeah.
But I swear there's an ability that stops you from being phased, isn't there?
Yeah, it's, Suction Cups.
Yeah, suction cuffs. Gastrodon is broken.
I think,
Octillery?
Octillery and,
Gastrodon.
Cradily.
Does Gastrodon not get it?
I think Gastrodon might get it.
It gets
I know
Sticky
Cradily
Hold
gets it
and Storm
because-
Drain for sure. No, it's Sandforce is its last ability. I must have been thinking of Cradily, because that also gets Storm Drain.
Yeah, well that's why it's it's got a niche in Gen 4 OU, because then the
It's very
sand it can't be phased out, so it can set up without worry of
Phasing.
being bored. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, Robert Menzies. May he be rolling in his grave. Unfortunately, he probably since given up. He's still the, Alright. Malcolm Fraser.
Yeah.
There's a
what's
meme-
the transition?
I don't have a transition.
No, I know. Robert Menzies is really old, almost as old as Mamoswine, because it's an
Boomer.
ancient Pokemon.
It's Boomer.
Ooh.
Robert Menzies is
this
also,
why-
like, a bit dead to be old, right?
Look, I mean, Look, we had a fantastic transition. And then
Oh, right, I
this is
forgot
what-
the other transition I could have gone with is, speaking of bad Australian Prime Ministers.
You'll just do that for like most of these, though.
I have way too many LMP Prime Ministers, because there have been way too many LMP Prime Ministers. I say LMP like they're not all, the L, right? But I mean, it was Coalition that was putting them in power. But yeah, there's a Mamoswine. It's another Pokemon with access to Stealth Rock. It's also an Ice Resist, which is actually the reason I picked it up. Because
Also, it's Mamoswine, it's broken, nothing can switch into
I
it.
drafted 2 Steels, and neither of them resisted Ice. A lot of Pokemon can switch into it in this format. Like Arceus. There's an Arceus Water. No one drafted it, but it's legal. Darkius. Someone drafted Darkius. Get rocks. It's pretty good. I like Pokemon that have access to Stealth Rock. It's an electric immunity, which I felt was cool with my Skarmory. It's an Ice Resist that is fire neutral. Which is
It's
cool.
got Ice Shard in case you need to just.
It does have priority. That's right. I have E-Speed on whatever it's called, and I have Ice Shot on this. And I think I picked up priority on another one. No, I wound up cancelling that. At one point I was thinking about going for Mega Pinsir, and then I realized it was Mega and it can't run Boots, which means it's bad.
Poor Mega Pinsir.
Also, it can't run Quick Attack plus Body Slam or Quick Attack plus Double Edge, which is just so bad. And I figured I probably would need it to be 3-4 points cheaper than it was for me to justify getting it, just to revenge Marshadow, who I may not even have in the schedule. I might actually have in the schedule. The schedules are out, but I only saw they were updating them from the back, so I saw my week 8 opponent, I saw my week 7 opponent. I didn't recognize who my week 7 opponent was from the team name alone, and then I stopped watching. So
Okay.
Malcolm Fraser. Now I don't actually remember who the next.
I
don't actually remember what the next mod is.
No. Okay, I've got this. Speaking
Okay.
of things you should stop watching, you should stop watching the TV anytime Tony Abbott makes an appearance.
Oh yes, that's right. We've got Butchie smugglers themselves. There's a look at how bad it is on Starvy's end, right? You can see it bulging right through.
Everyone,
covering.
get your onions, take a deep bite into them, and
Take
say,
a deep
shit
bite.
happens. Take a nice big bite out of it, not a couple of times, and then say shit happens. And that's the Tony Abbott experience, everyone.
Very powerful. Very powerful.
Oh, that was.
And then after you get disgraced and backstabbed by your own party, you should just become the Minister for Women. Despite looking like you have never spoken to a woman in your life.
He does have a daughter, but
He has 2 daughters, right, and a wife. And
yeah.
From what I understand, he actually generally, I mean, in policy, he was generally good on the issues of women, right? Like he was he strengthened the anti-domestic violence campaigns and stuff like that. Like, I mean, sure, he was okay on it, but also he looks really disturbing.
For a right-wing politician.
For a right-wing politician, for someone who said that it was okay for corporations to not hire people because they're women, he's relatively good for women. Huh?
That's a great statement.
Yeah.
For a murderer of babies, he was actually pretty good for babies.
I mean, I wouldn't, like, he just is like a religious nut,
Yeah.
So
that's Tony Abbott.
I'm definitely not stalling while I try to remember.
Pokemon.
Did I uninstall Google Slides on my phone? Why would I do that? No, I didn't. It just came pre-installed, which means it's in a Google folder.
Why did you pick Starmie? I mean, it's a cool Pokemon.
It has access to the move flip turn.
It does have flip turn.
It also has
got
rapid
ice
spin,
resist.
which is the actual reason why.
It's an ice resist. It's got
It is an ice resist. It's an ice
yeah,
resist that's not weak to fire.
Yeah, and it's got recovery. And
I think this is the first fire resist I picked up since Arceus. It's a fighting resist as well, because my team was looking bizarrely weak to fighting for a team that has a Clefable on it. And a flying type.
I mean, the flying type is neutral.
Yeah, the flying type is flying neutral, which is obviously
You
the
mean
issue there.
fighting neutral? Yeah.
Fighting neutral. You're correct. It is not. It is definitely not neutral to flying because it is a flying resist.
Yeah. And also, you picked it because you named it after Tony Abbott
Budgie
because they
smugglers.
both love their swimming. Yeah.
So next we have a politician who was for a while in political comics was always depicted as the Grim Reaper, and hopefully he reaps the souls of my enemies. There's we got Drapion, Paul Keating. Does Drapion not look like he would like a balanced budget?
That is a reach. Well, that's all I'm gonna say. Like, these have been bad, but that one was
What's been bad?
the reach to link the two together, like to
Pokemon
link the name
or-
of the mon.
The Pokemon or Abbott and Keating?
No, yeah, the name and the Pokemon. Like,
Oh yeah, Keating and Drapion. I mean, no, I just I think that Drapion is my dark type, and like this was literally the thought process I was going through. This was like the 3rd Pokemon I nicknamed, I think. Like, I'm like, well, I mean, obviously the dark type and it's poison type, so Paul Keating. I mean,
that's
I
right,
am
people. The bucket was this
not-
low already.
generally a massive fan of Keating, but he did do some good things, like Super. He was good. He was good on Super. He did a lot of stuff that didn't last. That was not. He also did many things that were not good, like the recession we had to have, and privatizing Qantas in Combank. It's not cool.
But things that are good though is toxic spikes and a grounded poison and a dark type.
Exactly. Latox, it's got knockoff.
Yeah, it does.
I forgot to mention the other Pokemon that I knock off, which was to say Mammoth Spine and Clefable. Clefable's item displacement is cool. Drapion, I think, might have Switcheroo, but I'm not sure I ever run it. But yeah, Paul Keating.
Does it have? It does not have Switcheroo.
It doesn't? Bruh.
No.
What a sad Pokemon.
No,
And
pathetic drop.
yeah, so I wound up picking it because I needed a Ghost Resist. After originally I didn't have like Starmie or Drapion planned, and I was looking at a team that just didn't have a Ghost Resist outside of normal, which was probably not the best of ideas. Well, that's why they wound up picking Drapion. Now, next we have my what was the? Oh yeah, I wanted another Fairy Resist, and I looked for the bulkiest Fairy Resist that I could, and I wound up with Volcarona or Julie Gillard. Now, the reason that Julie Gillard is Volcarona is because Julie Gillard very famously had red hair, and is the only Prime Minister that had red hair, and
Yep.
Volcarona is red.
That's a strong link. I appreciate that.
I don't think she's actually the only Prime Minister we've ever had with red hair. I just think all of them were grey by the time they came Prime Minister, and she died.
So obviously this Volcaron is going to introduce carbon tax, then get stabbed in the back by
Oh, we go that
by
far
a
already.
Volcaron
So
that's coming up.
it's funny because all of the prep I've done with Volcarona, most of it has been like with defensive Volcarona sets, with like bulky Roost Wisp sets, which is just because I think that's a really good display of how bad my ice matchup is. That every single time I've been like trying to bring defensive Volcarona in prep. But yeah, speaking of stabbing in the back and getting stabbed in the back by, here we have a two-time Australian Prime Minister.
So for
it's
those
Kevin
who don't
Rudd.
know, it's Kevin Rudd. So, for those
So
who
Kevin
don't
Rudd was
know-
Prime Minister of Labour. Kevin 07. Good old Kevin 07. And then he apologised instead of doing anything good. And
then he got stabbed in the back.
No,
by
so then
Volcaron.
they had a leadership spill, and Gillard became Prime Minister, because the way that the Australian system works is it's like the British system, etc.
Yeah,
but with less,
you don't
like...
vote for a president, you vote for a party, and the party.
You
picks
know,
the
you
leader.
you vote for a local member, and then the local
Yeah.
member's party affiliation, or if they're an independent, the one that they decide to coalition with, the leader of that party becomes Prime Minister. Ordinarily, it's a leader from the lower house, which is called the House of Representatives. But we have, I think, one of the Mortons is named after a Senate Prime. No, I don't think I named anyone, but we did have a Senate Prime Minister once. It doesn't really mean anything, like whether you're in the Senate or the House of Reps in terms of who can constitute.
Yeah.
But it's generally considered poor form.
Yeah, so basically Kevin Rudd didn't get to finish the first term he was elected and was replaced by Julia
That's-
Gillard. Then she was re-elected.
Wait,
and
is
then
that true?
she didn't
I
get
thought
to
he
finish
got
her term.
re-elected. I
No,
thought
he
he
did
got
not.
re-elected and then they had a spill.
No.
Was it not in his second term?
No, it was
I
in
thought he
his
had
first
3
term.
terms. I guess not. Oh yeah, and then Gillard got re-elected, and then they
Yeah, then
figured
Gillard-
that like...
then- And then near the end of the thing, they replaced it with Kevin Rudd.
Again.
And yeah, that
And then he
was,
retired.
not a great...
And then they nominated him for the head of the United Nations, chairman of the United Nations, whatever it's called. And our own Prime Minister, who was from the opposition, Tony Abbott, we brought up earlier, said that no, we don't want an Australian to be in charge of the United Nations, so we didn't have one. I think we got a Korean in charge instead right now. Yeah, it's very powerful. Speaking of very powerful, next is the Oricorio page with all 4
We
Oricorios.
didn't even talk about Heliolisk.
Oh yeah, I wanted a normal type, and I wanted a flying resist. That's it. Heliolisk was just checking boxes, in all honesty.
Poor Heliolisk, holy shit.
I really did not... I don't know, like, Heliolisk felt very important when I was drafting, and then every single time I've, like, looked at the teams and stuff after that, I've really not cared for Heliolisk that much.
Oh, you... Don't worry, I still respect you.
Yeah, speaking of incredible things, Oricorio is next. Bob Hawk, the Oricorios. All 4 of them. As you can see, here is... I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen, I assume it's recorded. But his Baile, his Pau, his Sensu, and his Pom Pom. All 4 of them. I hope to bring all 4 of them, though I find it somewhat unlikely that I bring the Psychic one, just because... The fuck does it do? Better than
I
the
got a
Ghost one.
question, though. Though. Can they all skull a beal?
Absolutely, you know that they can.
Okay, they're not frauds like
I mean, you
Scott
think they dance that well sober?
Yeah, that's true. They're not frauds like Scott Morrison, who famously had one sip of beer at a rugby league game today and then put it down. Like, you could see him shuddering. Ugh.
Speaking of terrible Prime
Sorry, I had to
Ministers,
complain
not
about
Bob Hawke,
Morrison.
but in the sense of
wait,
like,
no, before you did this, why did you draft Oricorio?
well, I wanted a
Besides
Ghost
the fact
type.
that it's broken for how cheap it is.
It was 2 points. I wanted a Ghost type.
Yeah, I think it's a very good Pokemon. It's very cool.
It
very flexible.
helps my fighting matchup technically. It helps my fairy matchup technically.
Yeah,
It helps my flying matchup technically.
helps your everything matchup technically.
No, there are several types it does not help my matchup to. Not least of them, Ghost and Dark.
It helps your. Well, it doesn't make it worse.
Look at 2 of the types.
Yeah, but just bring one of the other 2 5-head.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like Sensu is the main form that I drafted it, which is the Ghost one.
Okay. Because I usually like the Pom Pom form a lot.
I mean, I don't mind Pom Pom. Like, it's like a slower Zapdos sort of thing, but it's a lot worse
Yeah.
than Zapdos. But also,
It's
like,
how many points is Zapdos? How many points is Oricorio?
Oricorio was 2. I think that was. I think it was undercosted.
And Zapdos would be 17, 16.
I believe Zapdos was 15 points in this format, but it may have been 16.
Okay.
Note that in this format, the most expensive non-Ubers Pokemon was 17 points.
Yeah.
Which I think is the main reason for that. Because I'm pretty sure it was Zero at 16 and then Zapdos at 15. And now, speaking of, and just like this typing was loadable, let's get my load of bull. Malcolm Turnbull / Track.
The
What's a horse to a dinosaur killer?
recent former prime minister we've got, in the sense that, yeah, he was our last prime minister before our current one.
Before he got stabbed in the back.
There has I don't
Not even by the current prime minister, by another dude who was like from our state, but also the most repulsive person I have ever.
He looks like Skeletor if you glued skin onto Skeletor. Like not.
Please do not insult Skeletor.
Skin. Someone glued skin onto it. Very.
Not Malcolm
cool.
Turnbull. I'm not talking about. We're subtweeting another the super minister. I don't think he's super minister anymore, but he was super minister for a while.
I don't know.
They put the like most racist MP in second most racist MP. No, he's most racist MP because the senators are not MPs. In charge of, I think he's a senator though, isn't he? No, he's a minister of parliament. Yeah, in charge of immigration, border protection, and two other things that I don't remember. Give him super ministry.
Yeah. By the way, an Australian prime minister has not sat out a full term since John Howard. That's
For context, John Howard stopped being prime minister in 2007.
Yeah. That's like I think Malcolm Turnbull was probably in power for like over 3 years. So that is a term, but he did not sit out a whole full term.
There was a double dissolution. The second one since Goff, which is why he didn't sit out a full term.
Yeah.
Over the ACCC, which they still haven't done anything on, by the way.
The ACCC, the what was that again?
Australian Construction something. No, it's not the ACCC.
Yeah.
ACCC is the Australian Crime and Corruption Commission, which is not. No, it was the Australian Construction something. But they did nothing on it. It was just like, hey, here's a bill that we can like force through that no one cares enough about to not vote for us in the next election, but we can get a double dissolution on to try and get Senate. And they did, and then he got overthrown. Also, he's the guy who stabbed Abbott in the back.
And now we have Scroat Morrison, who let's
not go too in depth and too political about the modern.
No, I was
the
going to
current
say
Prime Minister.
it's a funny story about Scott Morrison. So back when our country was on fire, like back in late 2019, 2020. Oh, actually, before that. So remember
It was in 2020 that he did
kerfuffle
the thing you're trying to talk about.
Yeah. So remember that whole kerfuffle, like about Ted Cruz leaving Texas during the big power outage fiasco.
Went to
And
Cancun cruise.
Yeah, they made him come back. Our Prime Minister literally, Scroat Morrison, our Prime Minister, did that while Australia was on
Hawaii.
fire. He went to Hawaii, and he didn't come back early.
He also did not. He also did not declare the holiday in advance, which is a requirement. To be fair, he's waived that requirement. Like he's ignored that requirement every other time he's gone on holiday, even when he wasn't Prime Minister. But also, it is still like a requirement that he...
Yeah, that's that's what we're doing. Like I don't want to get too political, but that's what we're dealing with. That's our current Prime Minister. It's great.
Malcolm Turnbull is a very interesting figure because he was terrible on basically every issue, but also my like constantly Labour-leaning, hyper-Christian parents thought he was a very upstanding guy, and they would have voted for him if he had been running in the election that's going around it. Which is just a very disturbing thing to me about a critique of how even people who are well-educated and in positions of power will vote directly against their interests because they're both public servants, and this man laid off so many public servants. Oh yeah, Tony Abbott laid me off, by the way. Very fun.
So anyway, that was a nice, juicy political discourse in Australia video. I really liked it. You all learned a lot about.
If any of you watching are American, I would ask that you petition the CIA to. I mean, they did us dirty with Goff and Hope. Could they get in a little bit on this ScoMo action? You know, I mean, surely.
Okay, no, we don't need to like Can we please not request death on?
What, they didn't
Prime Minister?
assassinate Goff?
That's not. That's not. I don't want. I don't want my fake pseudonym associated with a video requesting.
I just want them to, do the standard election interference sort of thing that they've done every election here, you know?
No. Okay. Yeah. So I hope everyone has liked this little political discussion where we talked a tiny.
Tracking also a stealth rock. It's the main. No, I drafted it for a dark resistant. That was decently fast. I wanted another option for a Scarfer that was over 100 base speed. Tracking was actually pretty important.
Yeah.
Oricori also provided default, which was a thing. But I just wanted I just wanted a mon that I could like tank a hit with in most not against Ubers matchups, and do decent damage with. And Clefable, going all the way back to Clefable, part of the reason I dropped a Clefable is because it can generally defensively check basically any non-Uber, though it does struggle against like breaker Ubers with like a life orb or a choice item. It's generally pretty decent into most non-Uber mods, so that's cool. Tracking, very important part of my defensive core. Thank you guys for watching.
I really like it here. Looking at the whole team. Let's stop talking politics. Looking at the whole team here. So I'm not exactly experienced in the Ubers format. I am gonna say, as something that you did want, I do wish you had a Pokemon that was faster than Arceus.
Yes.
Because that'd be nice.
But there were
I know
no
you were
options.
trying to get one, but there were no options. I think because you miscounted a few points, didn't you, or something like that?
There was one point where I thought I had one more point than I did, because I thought Skarmory was a point cheaper than it was. Or at least I think I had mistyped it on my prep talk.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, even then I still didn't have a mon with over 120 speed planned because all of the decent ones went very quickly.
Yeah, we were looking at
the only mon I could
stuff
have
like
picked up was
Mega
Excel.
Pidgeot, which is 1 speed point
Yeah.
faster, or
I didn't feel like Mega Pidgeot was. I could justify Mega Pidgeot.
Megametric, which is
Was I ever looking at Mega Metric? I don't remember ever seriously looking at Mega Metric.
I think mentioned.
I think you mentioned it, and then I'm like, because I drafted this. I drafted it in another thing, but the reason I drafted it there is because I have a Sun team, and I think Mega Metric is okay on Sun, because it basically gives it stab on its fire moves as well. And electric and fire is a good dual typing. Look at Rotom Heat. But yeah, I don't think Mega Metric is good outside of Sun
I didn't think it was
teams.
good, but it's like it's a very slow. What was the other? What were some of the other Pokemon? that
We
were being
mentioned
looked at?
Excelgor. I looked at Excelgor a few times, but I couldn't fit it in. I mean, I got sniped a whole lot towards the back half of the draft.
So what was your original plan then?
I mean, I had several, but originally I had a plan with Mega Pinsir and I think it had Kangaskhan. It had grasses. I had a bunch of plans that had grasses, and all the good grasses went. Chestnut went, Breloom went. There was another high tier. There was some high tier grasses that went as well. I think that was an actual ground resist went. I was like, okay, I can pick up Excelgor or something. Meant I need to pick up a fire that was ground
So
neutral.
I am going to say this about the team. If you ever play a Zygarde, you're crying.
Yeah, that's why I want to pick up a grass, right? But I don't think I actually am, because they do have a Clefable.
I guess, sure, you do have Unaware Cliff, but it's not great.
And I have a Mammoth. I have a Volcarona. I also have 2 dragons that are faster than it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't have... It's not faster than Zig Snack, but it's fast... Dialga's not faster than Zig Snack, but it's faster than Daddy Zig.
Yeah, well...
And no one drafted Zig 10.
I don't know, I still think it's shoddy, but offensively, it's a cool team. I like,
Yeah, I mean, Zygarde is a mon that's very difficult to cover for in Thing if all of the good grasses go. I tried specifically to get a grass to cover for it.
Yeah.
Ideally Chestnut, because it would give me a secondary spike option, which is nice, but it didn't wind up working out. But I just feel like I can keep up enough offensive pressure.
Fighting type as well for a rock resistance.
I have Terrakion.
Yeah, exactly. But this was before you had Terrakion.
Yeah. Obviously, I would have preferred a rock resist. No, it was the dark resist that I was hyper focused on. I would prefer a dark resist that wasn't like Terrakion. Like Chestnut and Breloom have recovery, which is really nice. Not to mention that Chestnut has spikes and Breloom has Spore, And Chestnut's, you know, also the best starter, so, you know, it's well, it would have been pretty cool to have, but it didn't work out that way. We'll get him next time. And why does Makarov know you? Thank you for watching.